when there comes a stage where a student doesn't have the necessary work experience, how do we address that gap in the statement of purpose? That was one question that we saw from the students today. So that's something we have to address here. So, okay, Kamako, can you take us through what is the impact? I think I want to understand what is the impact that work experience has, and if they don't have it, how do they take it forward?
Okay, to first answer the question of a student, he said, I think they said, what if I don't have a work experience, and what should I cover about in SOP? I think you should talk more in general about your passion, your research area, paper publications, projects. If you don't have this, you can talk about what research is happening in the university and what kind of professor you want to work under, what kind of aspiration you have. You have to link your passion and to your research which is happening in university to a certain extent. It just makes more persuasive. It makes more it makes more sense in the admission committee's mind, saying that okay, this person is actually really interested in pursuing your master's in this particular field. Okay, so your next question was about
the impact of work experience.
See, if you're in the relevant area of if you're in the relevant area of masters, which you want to pursue a masters, if your work experience also is going to be similar, then yes, it makes a lot of sense and it has a good impact. But if you ask me a question, if it's mandatory to have work experience to get into top school, it is not necessary. Okay, there are enough students who got in top schools without work experience. Even with work experience, there are enough students who got rejected from top schools. So it's not about whether you're working or not, but how strong is your profile, how strong you can make your profile currently.
All right, I think I hope that addresses your questions, guys. I think that was a very important aspect. Now, I think one important suggestion that a lot of students ask me, like even before I begin with the seminar, is to understand the sample SOPs when it comes to workplace, right? So assuming that you have workplace, how do you talk about it? So can you show us some samples that would help us understand this particular aspect?
Okay, see, I wanted to. I'm going to show a sample. It's also from the Masters Connect. I hope you guys remember Masters Connect event. There's one superb event which you wanted to do. I'm showing the same. I'm actually showing the same sample because we don't want to give any ideas or inspiration for students. Since it's already been shown, I'll show it. Otherwise, we usually don't suggest or show any SOPs. Okay, but if you see this SOP in detail, it makes a lot of sense. It has more inspiring aspect. It makes more thought process on why the project at workplace, how the project at workplace can be made in detail. Okay, so if you see the workplace, it was more about a student who studied, who worked in water cabs and as a project manager in detail about it. And if you see, it's not about what she has done during, or he or she has done during the work experience. Okay, it is about what learning, what aspire, what triggered that question of curiosity of what next. Okay, if there's one aspect in your work experience which is asking you, okay, this is my field, I want to pursue this field for next 20-30 years, and there's something which you need. Then if that's something which you need is a master's, then that's your inspiration for doing a master's. So connect it well. If you're doing your work experience, connect it well with your master's, not about what you've done, but what is the learning, inspiration, and passion for it.
I think that, again, a very, very important point to be considered in this discussion. The way you write your SOP and show that what makes sense, right, is very, very crucial. Now, I have a question from Prashant, one more question. Can I include the CGPAs of semesters in which I topped or the subjects in which I topped? So I believe the question is about how do they talk about the academic endeavors, academic excellence in the current SOP? What is the role does it play? Can you take us through that?
See, academics, again, it's just like a work experience, okay? You don't need to write about, hey, this is my GPA, I worked under this particular, research, or I worked. It's about learning. You got a 9.91, okay, how do you say it in a different way? I was a topper for most of my semesters. Okay, that's because of my learning interest towards learning. Because in a resume, you're definitely going to mention about your GPA. Okay, and the resume are going to give factual details about all your facts, which are going to be mentioned clearly about the semester wise, or you will have the transcript. When admission comes, this I think this is what person should have it in mind while writing SOP, or anyone else. You should know what all the content they'll have when they review the SOP. They'll have a transcript, they'll have a resume, they'll have an application, and they'll have the SOP here. So you don't need to mention facts which are being mentioned in other document which you are providing for master. Provide learnings and information from which is not available anywhere else. That is very important here. Okay, so to answer the question, you don't need to mention specific GPA. Is already given the resume and the application form. If still and transcripts, you will still need it. You can mention saying that I'm the top 2% or 3%, a story out of it, a descriptive way of narrating it.
Okay, all right. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, the next question I see from Ramanuj Singh is, I have passed in 2016. I have only 6 months of experience. What should I be doing? Should I talk about my work experience? Should I talk about it, or in what context can I use it? Can you please address that question?
Okay, see, if your worry is that you have only 6 months of experience, is fine. You are passed in 2016. If you're worried there's a gap between 2016 and a work experience right now, it's fine. If you started your job 6 months back, you can also make a lot of that's where SOP makes a lot of sense. You can address the point, why did you have a gap? You can say that you're strongly waiting to work in my, if you have been working in your field of interest, you can say I was particularly looking for a job which is motivating me or passionate in which in the field I am interested in. That's why it took some time to search for the right job and settle in. So you can actually make it more persuasive. You can actually make it more sense to it.
Okay, I hope that addresses your question, Ramanuj. In the meantime, for those who have just joined us, feel free to post your questions, and I think we are going to be addressing a lot more moving forward. But it's also important that we stick to our guns here and address a lot more about statement of purpose. Now, one thing I have seen the students to do is they don't have an understanding of how to make that coherence. For example, say students are certainly working in some industries, they have certain inspirational movies, right? So this fact about why they've chosen this field, if you had seen one example where you can tell us that this is how you can talk about why you've chosen this industry as a motivation, what would one such SOP be, and how would you show that as an example here?
I think you can show an example here. Okay, see, it also talks about, if you're looking at this example, there's one thing which has been spoken about and which is concurrently happening. Make your SOP as concurrent as possible. Make your SOP talk about the facts which is happening right now. For example, everyone knows data is very important. Whatever data you have is used for many purposes. More than oil, more than water. Okay, water was being spoken about, the next big thing. But more than that, data is very important right now. If your data falls into the wrong set of hands, as you call the power is with the wrong set of hands, they can actually manipulate you. They can make your interest be not twisted. They can actually do many stuff. They can make your thinking differently. So all this is happening because they have data in the mind. So it's concurrent. So if you see the person's SOP, it starts with the saying that data is any oil. It sums up everything which I told right now. Okay, so if you're making the SOP passionate, it's one thing. Good. Make your SOP more relevant to the current situation. That will catch the person's attention immediately.
All right, all right. Now, Srivatsan Mohan has a good question for you. Is it necessary that we should mention all the projects and workx, only the ones related to the master's course, or is it okay to mention other aspects? Now, there's no issue, Srivatsan. Please feel free to post your question anytime with us.
See, Srivatsan, I think it is, if you're pursuing a master's, it'd be good if you're writing about subjects or projects or work experience which is relevant to your master's. If it's not relevant, it doesn't make that much of sense in writing an SOP.
Okay, so I hope that addresses your question, Srivatsan. The reason also you have to understand that if the university admission committee gets an impression that you're not just in this space, but you're looking for some other space as well, the right decision for the admission committee and the university would be to invest in a person who is looking for that particular industry, because that's the value addition you're going to bring into the university. So keep in mind, a master's course is not just about how your development is going to be. It's also about what value you are going to add to the university. So from that both perspective, it might not be the right move to mention work experience, especially in the other industries. And that's only in the case of USA. If you look at Canada, if you look at Germany, having work experience in other domains directly ends up in a reject sometimes, because they expect you to be very, very coherent and very clear about your goals. So that way, I hope that answers your question, Srivatsan Mohan. And more questions, more questions. Welcome here. Please feel free to ask as many questions as possible. Now, some of the questions that we have seen in our video so far is, one question is scholarships. Now, this question of scholarships is something that's been coming for a long time. How does an SOP impact in scholarships? Can you take us through that?
See, one thing is that SOP makes a lot of impact in your admission process. Okay, student when they're see, SOP is a standout from rest of your application, because in any of your application there's some way or other there's an external factor which is being influenced in a profile. For example, GPA, someone's scoring the GPA. If it's going to be LOR, someone's writing the LOR. If it's going to be let's say financial documentation, someone is involved there also. So SOP is one aspect which is making you yourself very clear to the admission committee. You are going to stand by it and you are going to talk about it. Okay, in this SOP you have to make few things which is very, very clear. Okay, again, we are talking about scholarships here. The scholarships also should have a in a way, if you are going to pursue and talk about scholarships here, you can talk about few things. One, how good you are and what contribution you can make to the research. I would see, if a student understands this, it makes more sense, Vishnu. How does someone get a scholarship or a funding? When the professor was involved in research and a lot of fun, he in turn gives in terms of RA or TA to different set of people. RA's TA in different set of people, that's a funding given to students. Okay, that's one major way of getting a funding from a university. So if a student is able to understand, okay, this research is happening, this prof is doing a research, so if I work under him, that's a good chance I get a scholarship. So this context should be here in the SOP. SOP should talk about, hey, this particular prof who's doing a research is also my area of interest, and how do you relate to it in SOP is very important. I hope I'm making sense here. Okay, your admission process is the first way to your SOP helps the first gate. There's your admission, admission to a university, that has to be clear. Once the gate is open, the second gate is your scholarship. You're getting a scholarship. Your SOP they'll try to understand whether the student understands the university, what research is happening, what kind of contribution the professor or the student can do to a professor's research is very important. If they are able to make that sense, then it makes a lot of necessary things which can get a scholarship. Again, a student can go to a university and get more scholarship. Okay, or if a student wants to get a scholarship while applying, SOP is major area about asking for a scholarships here.
All right, I think that's very important. I think moving forward, we are going to come back with more and more live events like this. Now, I do understand there are some technical, but don't worry, guys. For now, I hope we have addressed all the questions that we have in hand. And moving forward, we're going to come back with more live events and address all these questions in detail. In the meantime, I want you guys to ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep us posted. We're going to come back with more videos, especially for you guys, to ensure you get the right amount of content you're looking for. And out of all that, thank you so much, guys, for being very patient with us and having posted your questions. We'll ensure that even if happens so that you miss the live event, feel free to watch through the questions and start posting your questions as comments in this live event. We will ensure we take it up and address that way, because that's a limited time we have with Mr. Kamakon. We have the next webinar coming up as well, starting. So I hope I'll see you guys right there. And until I see you, and of course, Kamakon seeing us, this is Vishnu and KK signing off. A very good evening and take care, guys.